Alright, so here we are at the St. Catharines Flying Club at the Niagara District Airport, which is where I keep my plane and where I took my awesome pilot lessons. So this is my airplane, a Cessna 150 Aerobat. I bought him about 11 years ago. So he's a great little plane for just doing scenic flights. It's a two-seater, side by side, which I love. Also does aerobatics, because there's nothing better than making a man scream like a little girl. This is the Flying Club mascot. His name's Clubby. He was just a kitten when I got here, and he's been slightly overfed and now weighs about 286 pounds. But he's cute. Hi. So just going over some of the control surfaces of the airplane, things to look for when you're doing your walk around. One good thing, there is a wing. One wing, so we got one. We got a tire. Tires are always good. Not a big deal during flight, but always good when you're taking off and landing. This right here, this flap, this is called the aileron, and this rolls the airplane like that. Got the fuselage, of course my personalized registration, Liz. This here is the elevator, so that makes the plane go up and down. Then we have the rudder. Now this turns the plane on for yaw. So where the aileron went like that, so you're banking, the rudder goes like this. So this is more to fine-tune some maneuvers, especially landing and taking off in wind, to counteract the yaw. Good news, good news. Another wing! Woohoo! Okay, always want to make sure you have at least two of these. Two wings. Really helps, or else you just end up flying around in circles. Now, I don't have air conditioner in my plane, and it gets really hot, so I had this big old fan installed. Look at that big fan. Keeps me nice and cool. Feel the wind blowing in my hair. Yeah, and in here is this big engine thing. Kind of nice to have too. Kind of makes it a little more heavy and expensive, but it is good to have. One thing you need to do before flying, always remove your chicken. Do not leave your chicken on the plane. This is actually covering the pitot-static tube, and air goes into this tube and controls a few different gauges, such as your airspeed. You keep it covered in case any bugs try to climb in there, because I've had it happen, and rolling down the runway, getting ready to take off, there's a bug in there and my airspeed is indicating 0. Not a good thing. Remove the chicken. Now another thing we do before we get flying is we test the fuel. So we have this handy dandy little fuel tester, and there's 3 spots on my plane where you test it from. Fuel stored in the wings. Now what we're looking for here is that beautiful blue color, which means it's avgas, 100 low lead. So you want it blue. You also want to make sure there's no sediment in it, and especially no water on top, because if there is, you got to get that drained off. And oh, it tastes a little off today, but the color looks good, no water, so I think we're good to go. Okay, another thing we have when we're flying, just before we want to either take off or land at another airport, is to listen to the ATIS, which is the Automatic Terminal Information Service. So this is going to tell us all about the airport, anything going on, which way the wind is blowing, very essential to know which way you want to land and take off, which runway's in use, and if there's anything going on, if there's a runway closed, or if there's birds in the area, or a llama on the runway, whatever. So you listen to this first, and you get all the information you need, and then you let the tower know when you call them that you do have the information and you did listen. So here we go.
St. Catharines, information Charlie, weather 1300 Zulu, wind 19010, Cabo Cape. Temperature 282.22, altimeter 2984, runway 24. Home St. Catharines Radio, you have information Charlie.
So there we go. So that is the ATIS. So we've heard that. We know which runway to take off. We know which way the winds are blowing. We know how to set the altimeter, which is very important to know your density altitude. And now we just gotta figure out how to start this thing. There's so many buttons and stuff. I don't know what the heck it is. I'll figure it out. And don't forget about that.
Catherine Trail, this is Charlie Golf, Lima Yankee Zulu with Charlie.
Cessna Golf, Lima Yankee Zulu, St. Catharines Radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Lima Yankee Zulu. I'm at the club. I'll be taxiing Charlie, taking off from 24. I'm going to head up straight overhead the field between 3,000 and 4,000 feet for aerobatics, and then I'm going to do the Niagara Falls Scenic Circuit, and I'll let you know when I'm heading up for that.
Lima Yankee Zulu, Roger, runway 24, wind 210 at 9, altimeter 2985, traffic overhead airwork 2 to 4,000, 1 design. Squawk 5325.
Lima Yankee Zulu 5325. Thank you.
And St. Catharines, Lima Charlie Kilo.
Lima Charlie Kilo, St. Catharines Radio.
Yeah, I'm happy to take us out to the airport if Liz wants to stay north.
And Lima Yankee Zulu, if you'd like, you can go ahead and transmit your intentions.
Thanks so much, Scott. Yeah, I'll stay north, although by the time I get up to altitude, you'll probably be down and back landed and home.
You never know, but either way, I'll stay south of 0624.
Thank you so much. I'll stay north. Lima Yankee Zulu taking position on 24 for immediate takeoff.
Lima Yankee Zulu, Roger.
You always want to take off and land into the wind. Due to the shape of the wing, the air on the top of the wings moves faster than air on the bottom. Faster moving air has lower air pressure, thus creating lift. So extra lift with the increased airflow by taking off into the wind means the plane lifts off sooner. This kind of makes you wonder about the song, "You Are the Wind Beneath My Wings," because it should be "You Are the Wind Over My Wings." Anyway, also planes perform better in cold weather because cold air is denser than warmer air, and this contributes to better engine performance and lift. So I've climbed up to 4,000 feet for some aerobatics. In Canada, you have to do aerobatics above 2,000, but the higher the safer. And since another plane is doing some maneuvering to the south of us, I'm staying north. Now the first maneuver I'm going to do here is a loop, so I'm diving the plane down to get up enough speed to hit at least 130 miles an hour. And once I've done so, up and over we go. It's nice having a sunroof. It's very convenient to keep track of your position during the loop, and it's also really neat to see the ground above you. So the next maneuver I am going to do is going to be an aileron roll. So again, I'm going to dive down to get enough speed, another 130 miles an hour. And then I'm going to do the roll to the right. It's a nice gentle maneuver, nice and slow. Don't really hit too many G's. Unlike this next maneuver, which is the snap roll, which is a little bit more spunky. It's also more difficult to perform, and the tricky part is stopping the roll before over-rotating and not letting the nose drop. I love doing aerobatics right over the airport because I have the tower watching me, watching traffic around me, so it's much safer. Plus, if anything were to go wrong, I've got the airport right under me. I could very easily glide to down to one of the runways. Now the next maneuver here is going to be the hammerhead. So I'm going to dive down again, get my speed up, and head straight up. Now I'm looking out the side window here to try and get my plane as close to 90 degrees to the horizon as possible. And once the plane runs out of steam, I use the rudder and a bit of aileron to flip the plane over to its side. Now the next one, I'm going to need a bit more speed, about 140 miles an hour. I'm going to do a Cuban 8, or sometimes I like to call it an Lizzy 8. It's a loop, and when I'm about 3/4 away through the first loop, you'll see me flip the plane back around, shiny side up, and I'm going to dive down again and do another loop in the opposite direction. Now, to be allowed to take passengers up for aerobatics in Canada, you need either 10 hours of dual flight instruction or at least 20 hours conducting aerobatic maneuvers. This may not sound like much, but pilots typically only do 10 to 20 minutes of aerobatics at a time because it's quite exhausting and it's pretty tough on your system. So my next one here is going to be an Immelman, which is a first half of a loop, and then I'm going to roll it upright on top. So actually right before I started this maneuver, the tower called me to let me know someone else was coming up to do aerobatics, so I waited till I was done the maneuver to give them a call back. You saw earlier I did a snap roll. Here comes a double. You can see a slight loss of speed at the end as the nose drops a bit. And I did an aileron roll before. This is actually my first time ever attempting to do a double aileron roll to the left. I typically do them to the right. But here I go trying to the left. Little sloppy at the end there, but again, my first time trying this one, so keep practicing. Don't mind that at all. Now I'm just going to do some steep turns and mosey on back towards the airport so I don't get too far out north. Coming up here is a bit of an underpowered aileron roll. It's going a little bit slower than I would be ideal, but so that's why my nose dropped a bit there. When I kind of goof around, just do my own thing, I call it Elizabatics. And I don't really care what they look like, how perfect they are, it's just fun to be up there. Here's another hammerhead. Watching the horizon out the side window there. Loses its speed and flops over. Now the final maneuver I'm going to do is called a spin. This is a full stall, and it's the wings that stall, not the engine. So the wings aren't creating lift anymore. And my plane is in a yaw state. So this is going to cause the plane to corkscrew downwards. And a yaw state is where one wing is more stalled than another. And that screaming you heard wasn't actually me, it was the stall alarm, I promise. So I'm done aerobatics now. Going to head over to Niagara Falls. Do a little bit of a happy dance first because that was fun. And here's my little co-pilot, Donkey. Little Donkey. He's got his little aviation scarf on, his little goggles. So now I'm just going to give the tower a quick call and let them know my intentions. That I'm going to depart their zone to the south and head over to the Niagara Falls Scenic Circuit. So whether I'm taking people up for purely a scenic flight or doing some aerobatics, a flight over the magnificent Niagara Falls is always our first destination. I personally never get sick of seeing it. It's so amazing. But you can't just go flying over it all willy-nilly. Gotta follow some very strict rules because it is a restricted airspace. So you have to be at a minimum of 3,500 feet. And you're going to enter the scenic circuit just to the west, Highway 420. You'll see the chart there that shows you that airspace. And stay south of the Rainbow Bridge and fly a clockwise pattern. And there's also specific exit points, as you can see on the chart there. Now, before entering and exiting, plus multiple times during your flight around the circuit, you need to call over the radio the other traffic in the area. Even if there is no one flying, you still need to make the radio calls on frequency 122.05 and state your current position, your altitude, and your intentions. So commercial air tours that have been approved by Transport Canada, they typically enter the Niagara Falls Scenic Circuit from the north along the Niagara River, and they are between 2,000 and 2,500 feet. So they get to fly quite a bit lower than people like me, people that don't have that specific permission from Transport Canada. It's really neat to see the helicopter circling below. Sometimes if the angle is just right, it looks like their rotor blades aren't even spinning. Really cool. I always tell my passengers, see how long we get to stay up here? Sometimes we'll do 2 circuits around the falls. We'll be up there for well over 10 minutes. Going a nice slow flight, and we'll see the same helicopter on 3 different flights with different passengers. So the nice thing about that is I get to show people the falls a lot longer than being in the helicopter tour. But of course the downside is we're a fair bit higher up, but it's still a perfect view. It's just amazing. You can also see marine land. You can't in this video right now, but it's just off to the north there. So another neat thing you can see while you're up there. It's just amazing. Get to see lots of rainbows, Maid of the Mist, touring up and down. It's pretty cool. We're so lucky to live here because it's just amazing to see this. Soon after doing my first solo, I was assigned a new flight instructor. Probably because the first one's nerves were totally shot after all my shenanigans. But my first flight with this new instructor was awesome, as he allowed me to practice multiple landings on the grass infield. He has a grass strip at his own place, as do a few other folks around Niagara, including my aviation mechanic. So this is me doing a couple low and overs at my mechanic's well-kept grass runway. So I'm just coming in now. You can see it up ahead there. I've got some telephone lines to make sure I stay above. You can see another plane there at his own personal hangar. So now I'm going to climb back up over the trees at the end of the runway. And then turn around after I've climbed a bit to do another low and over in the other direction. I absolutely love landing over trees. It's just so much fun to get quite close to the treetops and then do a nice dive down to the runway. You can see I'm just looking behind me here to keep the runway in sight as I do some nice gentle turns. Okay, not gentle. Steep turns to get back around. Now, when I do fly with passengers, I never ever fly like this with anyone. I never do anything aggressive or abrupt. Everything's very gentle, and I let the person know everything I'm about to do because I never want to cause any fear in someone and ruin their flight experience. So here we come back over the trees. And dive down. So much fun. So now I'm going to head back north up over a golf course. I get a lot of times people say, "Oh, I saw you flew over. Did you see me wave?" Well, not really. I'm usually at least 1,500 feet. However, I was watching here, and I did actually see someone wave. Hi. Good times, good times. So here I am back at the Niagara District Airport coming into land. I just let the tower know that I'm on the downwind leg, as you can see on the diagram there. My next turn will be base, and then I'll make another call to the tower and let them know that I'm turning final. Now, speaking of calling the tower, when I was doing my flight training, that was really the only thing that I had a true fear of, was speaking on the radio. They call it mic fright. Actually, quite a few people get it, and I think it's just a fear of making a mistake, being judged, not knowing who and how many people are listening to you. But the tower folks are there not to judge you. They're not going to throw you under the Airbus. They're there to help you. So it's a lot better for me now. Obviously, the more you do it, the better you get. Speaking of which, I have a little audio clip coming up just after I touch down of air traffic control exchange with pilots at a busy airport in the States, so you can have a listen to how intense and often confusing it can be, because you're trying to listen to your registration identifier out of all that gobbledygook, and it can be quite difficult, but kind of interesting. So here I am just about to touch down, runway 24. I have a helicopter just ahead of me. She's doing touch and goes, and I also have another plane behind me, so I'll get off the runway once I'm touched down here and get up to the taxiway and clear the runway for the next guy coming in. And here is that audio clip I was talking about.
So 1356, runway 31 center, turn left heading 220, clear for takeoff.
Up turn heading 220, clear for takeoff 31 center, Southwest 1356.
Southwest 220, flying 220, departures 1935. Have a nice day.
Now at 220, good day.
Lars 941, Noise Tower 31 center, line up and wait, traffic on a 5-mile final, be a moment for trail separation.
Line on and wait, Lars 941, runway 31 center.
South 528, Noise Tower, if you're on reduced to approach speed, traffic holds on the runway, descend your discretion. The wind's out of the southwest now at 4.
South 528, we're with you, slowing to approach speed.
Southwest 1356, if you would start the turn when speed and altitude permits, departures 1935, have a good day.
Cruiser 1935, in left turn, Southwest 1356.
Lars 941, runway 31 center, turn left heading 250, cleared for takeoff. Stay with me for another turn.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 31 center, and turn left heading 250, Lars 941.
That's correct, sir. Don't delay your roll.
Don't delay.
That's right.
Pretty crazy, isn't it? So you can kind of understand why students get just a little bit nervous talking on the radio for the first few times, but the instructor's there to talk you through it. So from this video, you can probably see why flying is such a great passion for me. It's such a joy, and it's also very therapeutic. And probably one of the best things I love about flying and having my own plane is being able to take people up for such an amazing experience. I love taking people up for scenic flights all around Niagara, and of course doing the aerobatics. Now, there's not too many people in this area that will take people up for aerobatic flights. So I'm really lucky that I get to do that and give people such a great experience. Now, if you look here, that black dot just above the horizon going to the left, that's that helicopter I was talking about. She just did another touch and go. And so I'm all set now, ready to shut down. Thanks so much for joining me on my flight. Hey everyone, Elizabeth Murphy here, Lizzy McFly. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I certainly had a great time making it, especially the flying part. Just a little bit about how I got into aviation. It was in 2005 I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and soon after that I was medically discharged from the Army after serving for over 10 years. I left the Army with just an abundance of amazing memories and experiences. It was just an awesome time. I was also given this adorable retirement certificate. Yep. But the other thing I got from it was leaving the Army was a big void, because I missed it so much, and it was such a big part of my life. So I just said to myself, hey, why don't I learn how to fly? Just out of the blue. So I phoned up the St. Catharines Flying Club, and the next day I had my familiarization flight, and oh my gosh, it was absolutely amazing. I was like crying on the drive home because I knew this was something that is a totally perfect fit for me, and I want to continue with this. So I carried on with my lessons. The only unfortunate part was I had severe motion sickness. I actually have never thrown up physically in a plane, thankfully, but the nausea was just so intense, and it took a good 5 or 6 months to subside. Speaking of which, herbal gravel, if you ever get motion sickness, it's pure ginger. It's absolutely amazing. There's no side effects, so it's just ginger, but it works wonders. When people go up with me for aerobatics, I always tell them before the flight to take about 3 or 4 herbal gravel about half an hour before our flight, and you won't believe the difference. So that's my little plug there. So anyway, soon after I got my pilot's license, my instructor said to me, hey Lizzy, my aviation mechanic has a little Cessna 150 for sale. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy a plane, because what if I have a big MS flare up and now I'm go months without being able to fly and it's just sitting there? And what if I'm going to be wasting all this money? And what if negative? What if negative? It took a month, and I finally said, hey, what if I don't get this? And I'm going to miss out on such amazing experiences like going to fly-ins where all these pilots from all over the place fly in and meet up. You can't really do that in a rental all the time, because it's a lot of hours just of the plane just sitting there. And taking people over Niagara Falls and Niagara, like, what if I'm going to miss out on that? So I said, hey, what the heck? And I went forward and I bought the little Cessna 150. I named her Odessa von Cessna. Cute little plane, a little 2-seater, just like the one I have now. Love taking people up around Niagara and just checking everything out, but I just never had that mother airplane bond that you would expect. So it was just not a perfect fit for me. So anyway, a year after I bought her, about that time, someone from the airport came up to me and said, hey Lizzy, do you want to go up in my Skybolt? And I go in my head, oh yeah, hey Lizzy, do you want to hurl and be extremely nauseous doing aerobatics? So I said to him, heck yeah, let's go. So I went for a 7-minute flight in this Skybolt. Oh my God, I was so nauseous, but it was amazing. It was worth every second. Oh my gosh, loved it. We landed and I said, I gotta get an aerobatic plane. Now I love the side-by-side seating because I just like looking over and talking to my passengers. It's just a lot more personal, especially when we're doing aerobatics, to look over and watch the expression on their face. It's awesome. Anyway, so I found out there's such a thing as a Cessna 150 Aerobat. So there's only about 24,000 of them made. The last one made was in 1974. Mine's in 1973. But I went and looked and found one in Pennsylvania, and yeah, got everything in order to bring them over to Canada. Need a ferry pilot and all the stuff with Transport Canada and the borders and everything. Yeah, and brought them in, and my aviation mechanic brought them up to Canadian standards. So quite a few tweaks and repairs to be done, but it wasn't too bad. I am so fortunate because soon after I got the plane, this aerobatic pilot, local aerobatic pilot, contacted me and said, hey, do you have an instructor for aerobatics? And I said, no, I don't know what I was going to do. So he took me up for a few lessons, and and taught me, you know, the basic maneuvers, loop roll, snap roll, and mostly what we focused on was what to do if something goes wrong. So safety first, as usual. So I was so lucky that he did that for me, and then I had to do the other 20 hours of aerobatics on my own over the next year. But absolutely amazing experience. I love it. Again, love taking passengers up. A lot of people ask me about the cost. I can't tell you how many people say to me, oh, you must be rich because you own a plane. I'm like, you must be rich because you have 2 kids. I mean, those things are expensive. I don't have kids though, but I admit it is an expensive hobby. You can buy a little airplane for $20,000 and obviously up. New planes are well over 100,000, so most people buy used planes, and because of the annual inspection, they're super safe because everything's being inspected. So you have that cost. Then you have to rent a hangar, and good luck finding one around here. And Hamilton closed up all their private planes in there, so it's just commercial only. So yeah, finding a hangar is a tough one, and it's probably around $300 a month to rent a hangar, or yeah, like mine's in the flying club, but I know there's no spots there. But yeah, it is really hard to find a good hangar around here. Then you have the cost of fuel. And it doesn't sound like much, it's $2 a liter, and it fluctuates between different airports, but unlike car gas, it doesn't go up and down constantly. It changes maybe a few times a year. So it's around $2 a liter, but just know that my plane in just not doing airbags, just straight and level flight, is gobbling up about 6 gallons of fuel an hour. So they're kind of expensive that way in the fuel. Then you have the insurance, and you actually pay insurance. The cost is based on the number of seats in your plane. So that's kind of why it's nice to have a 2-seater. But yeah, that's about $1,000 a year. I mean, depending on the cost of your plane and all. My plane, my first one, Odessa, was 28,000 Canadian, and that was back in, oh, was that 2006, I guess? And then around a year later, I got Victor, and he at that time, I guess 2006, 2007, was, I think, 34,000 American. So they're not that super expensive. You can get fairly low-cost planes. The really nice thing is we get to fly to different airports for food, because a lot of airports will have a restaurant right at the airport. Great one is Guelph. We go to Brampton, Tillsonburg, Brampton. Lizzy has the best butter tarts ever at the airport, just in case you're ever up there. So that's so much fun, of course. Well, the difference with my plane, the Aerobat, compared to just the regular Cessna 150 is it's just built a little tougher, so it can handle up to 6 positive Gs or -1. Now, the most I've done was 5.5 Gs, and I figure I'm not going to push it after that. So another cost is your medical, and if you're under 40, it's every 5 years. Over 40, every 2 years. Then I can't remember what age it is after that. It's every 1 year. You have to go to a specialized aviation doctor. There's a few of them here in Niagara. I'm very lucky because I have MS, yet I'm still able to have my pilot's license, but that's because of these medicals. I'm also in touch with the chief medical aviation guy up in Toronto, so he knows everything about what's going on, and I always, if I'm on a new med or anything, I pass it on to him to make sure it's all good to go. So I am lucky that they're accommodating that way, and yeah, I go every 2 years now, and I just need a note from my neurologist each time saying, hey, she's good to go. And yeah, that's about it. If I do have an MS flare-up, I think it was something like if it goes longer than 2 weeks, then you have to stop flying. You're grounded for like 6 weeks or something like that. So I'm fortunate that I haven't had to deal with that yet. The last thing probably about me is I do have a website. It's www.lizzymcfly.com, and there's some flight videos and such on the website. But my main thing is my blog, my Eliza blog, and I do that every few days to a week or so, and I just mostly put things about flying and my weird looking cats, because that's my life and it's great. So I do that, and just goofy blog posts, And at the end of each post, I put what my symptoms were for that day and the previous week if they were changing a lot, just so people can see how much MS differs from day to day. So that's pretty much it. If you ever have any questions or anything, or want to contact me, once this is over, go for a flight or whatever, you can email me at murfidge@simpatico.ca. And yeah, I hope everyone stays safe. Make sure you keep having fun though and stay positive.